welcome everybody to Season 2, Episode 3 of the MyTeam career mode for F122, as we're making our way back to Miami for the second season before we hit F123, and a surprising move by us and the early safety car in the last race, as we take the opportunity to go for hards on the safety car and fought for that podium, and we earned that podium quite well. A little bit unfortunate for our teammate of Daniel Tickton, as he has an engine failure, but we ended up taking up some points for the team for the second race of the season. And there's going to be plenty more ups and downs for the rest of the season up until F123 comes out. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into practice with our home race, and then we'll see you guys hopefully after qualifying if the recording software decides to work this time. So we'll see you guys in a second. Alright, so here we are in qualifying in Miami, and practice was a little wet. We went into the first practice and got to feel what it was like with the wet tires, and towards the end of the first practice we were able to run the mediums. So yeah, but we only ran the first practice. The other two we kind of didn't have time for, so we're going right into qualifying. So let's get out on the track. Alright, so qualifying and recording actually made it through, and quite surprising here, a lot of people getting 130s and 129s. You guys can remember seeing that I hit the front wing, so I had to come in instead of do a double lap run on the first set of stops, and then I ended up coming in about 6 minutes left and doing another attempt, getting a 131.2, and I thought that was good enough, and I didn't want to waste another set of softs from the Q2, so we are unfortunate to be knocked out of Q1, especially with a 4/10 or so of a second off of Alexander Albon, but there is plenty of improvement. It is week 3, we have the car for it. And this car has definitely proven to be one of those vehicles that can work their way up the grid, especially with the same for the Renault of Lance Stroll and Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin Honda. Surprising that they got knocked out of Q1 as well, but a lot of people running 129s and a lot of people running 130s. The middle of the pack running 130s It's going to be very interesting to see the grid lineup at the start of the race. So, a little bit of a test with the upgrades that came in so far this season compared to last race in Miami. And that's about it. So let's get right to the grid for the race.
We're here in the coastal shores of Florida for the Miami Grand Prix, which has become the 11th Formula One track held in the United States. The grandstands are packed for what we hope is going to be another fantastic race, with great opportunities for wheel-to-wheel battles featuring 19 corners, 3.36 miles long, and expected average speeds of 138 miles an hour. The Miami International Autodrome will be sure to create lots of chances to overtake. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Norris, Perez, Carlos Sainz, and Russell, Hamilton, Gasly, Magnussen, and Esteban Ocon, Mick Schumacher, Ticktum, Alex Albon, and Bottas, Oscar Piastri, Tsunoda, Lance Stroll, and Daniel Ricciardo. They've taken a grid penalty. Joe, Johnson, Latifi, and Sebastian Vettel starts from the back of the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race.
All right, let's get this show on the road, see what we can do. We don't have a personalized strategy because we didn't run the proper practice module for it. So we're going to go see if we can stretch out the lifespan of the medium tires and get this race started.
As the formation lap gets underway here in Miami, the drivers will be wanting to leave a lasting impression on the thousands of fans who flocked to today's race. The anticipation is certainly rising, and everyone is hoping for a fantastic and memorable Grand Prix. We're almost ready to start the race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
Alright guys, here we go once again. 5 red lights are off in Miami. Off to a decent start here as we're beside Joe Granu in the Audi. And moving a little bit to the midfield and breaking a little bit late here as we're still in the back of the pack here, trying to side by side with Nicholas Latifi, trying to hold a position against him as we go a little bit wide here on a couple of the first turns. And we do settle into P20 a little bit of ways behind Joe Granu as coming through these first corners, trying to get in grips with these medium tires here, as not really much of a change here on the first lap. Let's see here, going up the grid, we have Dan Ticktum in P11, just behind Kevin Magnussen, trying to fight for a position here as we try to still catch up to Joe Granu as we're getting ever so closer to the underpass hairpin. And we end up side by side with Joe Granu taking the inside lane here coming up. just behind that Stroll of the Renault. And a lot of very slow pace here coming through the chicane as they're pulling a yellow flag due to that. But as we come out to the straight to round out the rest of lap 1, that gap behind Oscar Piastri very open there as we were over a second as Joe Granu tries to make a move on us on the inside. We do end up giving that space to him on the inside, although we do hold that position against him, solidifying our position in P19 to round out the end of the first lap. And you can see how we're trying to keep with this racing line as best as possible with our higher aero setup. As we're moving on to lap 3 and on board with Lewis Hamilton here, moving to a third-person camera perspective as they're coming up to that double right-hander. And a little bit of a problem here with Lewis Hamilton. He has an engine failure, a mechanical failure here as the yellow flag comes out for the sector. And he has to pull off onto the runoff on the hairpin, and it's going to be a short race for Lewis Hamilton, getting knocked out on lap 3 as we get a free position. Moving on to lap 5, basically solidifying our position against Oscar Piastri, still holding just under a full second as we try to inch closer to Lance Stroll as we move on to the outside on the end of the track, gaining that position against him. And as we're coming through these curves here, he tries to make a move on us, but we still manage to hold as he's just under 0.2 of a second behind us. You can see him in the mirror there as we're coming up to the left-hander to the double right before the chicane. He tries to make a move on the inside. He backs off a little bit, and we're still holding off against Lance Stroll and trying to make a move on Yuki Tsunoda now. Moving on to lap 9, we're actually finally able to make a move on Yuki Tsunoda as we're coming up to pretty much the same area. A lot of overtakes with this DRS zone here in Sector 2, I believe it is. Coming up to the same left-hander to the double right and hairpin. Making a bold move on the inside, contact between myself and Tsunoda. Tire-to-tire contact, if you guys can remember, that is the thumbnail for this video, so we might as well have a very important moment as a thumbnail. A little bit of contact there. I did check the damage on the vehicle. There was no damage. I checked with my mechanic, and no damage from that contact with Tsunoda in the AlfaTauri as we hold on to P15 on lap 9. Moving on to lap 13, we're P14 at this time, trying to catch up to Daniel Ricciardo and Valtteri Bottas with Alexander Albon right on our tail as it's time for us to come into the pits. So we are slotting into the pits behind Daniel Ricciardo, swapping over to the hards. And Alexander Albon right there in our gearbox right behind us for this first pit stop of the race and only pit stop. As our teammate of Daniel Ticktum still stays out and making up to P7. But very unfortunate as we do have a regular pit stop, no change to the front wing. But since we are in a cinematic pit stop, we do lose that position against Alexander Albon. So we're going to have to regain those positions on them. But it'll be a little bit easier on us because these next few laps, the rest of the drivers will be coming in for their hard tires. Moving on to the end of that same lap, we have the battle between Dan Ticktum and Charles Leclerc. He's just under 0.8 of a second in gaining, but it is our teammate's turn to take a pit. And I don't believe Charles Leclerc comes in for a pit as well. I believe he comes in the following lap on lap 15, but yes, Dan Ticktum coming in for his hards as we're still slotting into P19 at this time as we regain position against Alexander Albon with that DNF from Lewis Hamilton there on the bottom from earlier in the race. As we're basically rounding out halfway through this race, and with these pit stops, a lot of grid changes with these pit stops. As Dan Ticktum has a decent stop here, losing a couple of positions, 3 positions now. And coming up between Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher, who went into the pits behind him. So he has to regain that momentum and re-challenge that position for top 10 against Magnussen. Moving on to lap 24, nothing has really happened, but we did get slotted up to P13 with those pit stops as we try to catch up to Daniel Ricciardo and Mick Schumacher for challenge for the top 10, as Dan Ticktum currently holds P10. So basically trying to battle for the top, just outside of the top 10, as we try to make a move on Daniel Ricciardo here. We're side by side basically through Sector 2 this entire time. We both get DRS here. So it is a very big challenge, trying not to come in contact with anybody. But as we're coming up to the left-hander, we still hold the inside line as we're going into single file here on the double right-hander. We try to make a move on Schumacher here, but it's not quite enough as we lose a little bit of momentum coming out of that double right-hander. And Daniel Ricciardo trying to make a move on us on this straight, but we are still able to hold that position against him here on lap 24. Moving on to lap 27, we're now trying to make a position on Mick Schumacher into P11, even though it's not necessarily points. We do make a bold move on the inside, getting a warning in turn for this cut on the inside here. And since we did just recently get in front of Schumacher, I do not believe we get DRS. We did not. There, you can see it there. Our wing is not open. Schumacher is still trying to make a move as we hold our line. And very bold move on us. We do give him the room there on the inside, but we still hold out and have that momentum being on the outside lane. And it's going to be rounding out our position against Mick Schumacher on lap 27. And we hold that position for the end of the race here as we're rounding out the end of the race in our home GP in Miami. So a very strong finish. P11. Dan Ticktum in the points in P10. Let's go ahead and see what we can see at the podium.
That's the end of the race. We'll see you at Parc Fermé. They've done it then. A truly magnificent win here at the Miami International Autodrome. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, and to stay out of trouble.
RedBull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sports that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win. So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. Despite the best efforts of our championship leader, that lead has taken a bit of a knock today. Some amazing talent out on the track today, but Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
I have to give it to Johnson. That was a commanding performance today. Very impressive indeed.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. And pulling further ahead in the standings, it's RedBull. Meanwhile, Ferrari have improved their position. A strong weekend for them as they fight their way towards the top. Well, that was certainly an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon.
All right, so yet again, another challenging race as we finish in P11 behind our teammate of Dan Ticktum. We didn't score points, but our teammate did. It's 1 point for the team. As we round out the end of the Miami Grand Prix. And a pretty long, challenging fight with Daniel Ricciardo and Mick Schumacher on trying to catch up to them and take position on them. Yet I do wish there was a situation where Dan Ticktum was fighting for P9. That way we both have the possibility of getting in the points. But we'll have to wait and see what happens next time. So, and once again, we have the issue there where the ending cinematic is very spotty, very laggy. And I looked at my OBS and it's encoding overloaded. So I will see what I can do about fixing that as best as I can without having the previous issues that we had with the last 2 episodes. So we'll see you guys in the next episode.